in this box is boots from a brand called Definiv, a brand from Korea. They're pretty new and they're pretty small, but they create some really, really unique products. And these are the Definiv DD or Double D. Here we go. Let's get into them. So first in the world, made in Korea. You can find them at definiv.com. Full disclosure, these guys sent me these boots and they don't get to see any of the review beforehand. They don't get to see it before you guys do. And yeah, so let's jump straight into it. They're made in Korea. And then these are a 27 centimeters, a US 9, UK 8, and a Euro 42. So pretty standard. These are the DD AG with the 3D knit and the carbon mixed plate. Now, one of the things that if you look on their website, Definiv does really, really cool is they actually have some really interesting differences between their AG, FG, and turf. Ooh, whoa. Holy, look at these. Whoa. Okay, very interesting. The laces too, they feel like shoestring French fries. That's where the name comes from. God, these are really interesting. And then look at that. So a lot more aggressive than most AG stud patterns. I'll see if I can get a pair of AG boots somewhere in here, if I still have some around. But I'll show you kind of the differences in how these are a lot actually larger than a lot of the traditional sort of AG stud patterns, if you will. There's the other one. Very cool. And then does it come with anything else? No, it doesn't. All right, we'll get the box out of the way. And very, very nice. So there is the Definiv. This little, I'm trying to see if this guy has an exclusive product for artificial grass. Do not wear on slippery floors or wooden coats, marble, etc. Okay, so yeah, so don't wear it. Don't use it as like basically don't wear this on court. Is like, these aren't meant to be futsal shoes, but that's surely to most people that would be pretty self-explanatory. But I guess in today's world, you need to bloody explain everything. So here we go. All right, let's take this little piece out as well, see what the softness of the upper looks like. Ooh, pretty nice. Dang. Okay, very cool. So this is a knit-based upper here in the, well, actually, what it looks like is, this says 3D knit material, but this here is much more synthetic-like. My guess is it's a kind of a woven-based upper as well. Very cool material, feels really, really soft. My guess is it's gonna break in pretty quickly as well. As you can see, there's these little slits that go along the outside as well. So there's an internal cage that's sort of this suede internal cage there as well for a little bit of that lockdown. And then you do have that knit material through the lacing system area and through the collar. Now this collar reminds me a lot more of the Superfly, the customized Superfly that Cristiano Ronaldo wore. And that was one of the boots that I think people freaked out about at first, because obviously the original collar was like up here, and then he wore sort of this augmented collar that was much lower. And then now, of course, he's in the Vapor, which is pretty interesting as well. Now, from a cost perspective, my understanding is these run about $190 USD, or 100, maybe 190 AUD. I'm not actually sure what currency that is in, but they are on discount for 125 bucks at the minute, which is pretty cool looking at the website. Now, in terms of kind of product details and stuff, the upper, they say, is a knit-based upper, but again, it's basically knit up here, and then this is more of that synthetic or sort of woven-based material. Now, what's really interesting about this sole plate as well is you're getting the carbon, TPU, and the EVA foam. So the EVA foam you see here in that white, and then you've got the midsole and the outsole, which are more of that TPU material. So it's much more of almost like a waxy finish, very stiff through the midfoot with a good amount of spring and snap there through the forefoot. That's really impressive for an AG model. This is very similar to some of the tech that you see in the Li Ning boots. Very cool. So from the Korean perspective, obviously they're taking a lot of boots in the Asian markets are sort of, because a lot of pitches over there are going to be artificial, they're sort of really raising the level of their MG their AG and their turf models in order to compete and not be like a second-rate boot compared to, you take, let's see, an F50 Messi, for example, right? The turf model or the court model of the F50 isn't even close to the level of technology, comfort, performance from the FG compared to the FG model. Now, with a lot of these brands like Li Ning and with Definiv, a lot of these brands now are creating carbon sole plates in their turf models. And it's like, yeah, because these are the boots that a lot of people in those markets are going to be wearing for a full season. Instead of buying a pair of, F50 Messi's in firm ground, because that's what I play on here in Australia. If I'm going to play only on AG pitches and I'm sort of I play twice a week for training and then I play on the weekends, or I'm just a weekend warrior type of player, all of those are awesome. You might be better served in a pair like this. Now, if we take out the insole as well, very, very interesting. It's super textured and very, very grippy. That's very much a 3D texturing to it. And it's got some stiffness here through the midfoot as well. So this black area here is pretty stiff compared to the yellow. It's perforated as well, so you get some good amount of breathability through there. And then underneath, you can't really see much under there, but needless to say, some pretty nice grip elements there. So we will test this out on an AG pitch here in Melbourne and see how these rock and roll. But I think these are going to be really interesting. Suede on the heel liner, knit. You've got the carbon mixed plate, which is really cool. This is a very similar style of carbon plate, it looks like, to the Skechers Razor 1.5, the newest, and I guess the 1 as well, but the Skechers Razor. So a very similar, it's not quite a carbon fiber sole plate like the Puma Ultra 5 Carbon, but it is a carbon-based or carbon-infused sole plate, which means it does have a little bit of excess stiffness and spring back compared to other boots. But this is a really interesting stud pattern to me. It's a synthetic-based football boot, so we'll see kind of how they perform. It's really thin, but it's very flexible, so I'm really curious to see how these perform. So without further ado, let's jump into it. All right, guys, out here at the pitch with the mid-cut synthetic Definiv boots. I am interested to see how these feel. They look quite a bit more snug than the leather version, so I actually don't know if these are going to be a playtest worthy football boot, particularly because in terms of stud patterns and stuff, this is sort of not really my wheelhouse. I do like some turf models, but I'm pretty selective with the stuff that I actually wear in terms of turf, and I barely ever wear turf, to be honest. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oof. Wow, that's grippy. Thank you, WeFoot Grip Socks. Okay. All right, so in terms of sizing, I've got about a quarter thumb's width or about a half a thumb's width on the end. Tightness here already is feeling pretty significant, so I might try and undo the laces just a little bit. Ooh, that's a little bit better. Okay. Not too bad. These remind me a lot of like old Superfly and Vapor Turf models. I don't think I've ever done, in fact, I'm almost positive I've never done reviews of those on the channel, but I used to wear those actually pretty frequently when I played arena soccer back home. Yeah, those are not bad. So in comparison to their leather model, these definitely feel a little bit more, I don't want to say like, actually I do want to say it, these feel a lot more expensive. I don't think they're that different in terms of pricing because they're like two different models, and obviously the leather that's like a calf skin is decent. I just got done reviewing those. But in terms of like in-hand feel and general feel on feet, I would say, God, whatever is in this insole, man, is so sticky. It's so hard to get my foot in. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay, once your foot's in, it actually feels really good. They're definitely built, at least straight out of the box. The feeling is like, okay, they're going to feel probably a little bit too tight for me straight away, but they probably will break in over time. They also, if they're going to cater to wider foot shapes, they need longer laces. My God, look how tiny that is. I don't even know if that's going to stay. And that's a freaking problem because if laces on a football boot don't stay. Look how tiny that is. It's just a single knot. So yeah, these feel way more premium than the leather model, which is it surprising? Not really when you put your hands on the leather ones, just because they are like a relatively inexpensive feeling calfskin. Whereas these ones feel a lot more like a top end football boot. And I would say there's a really big correlation between the stiffness, the overall responsiveness in a boot, and the relationship between the upper and the sole plate. So if the upper is a little bit stiffer, so same sole plate, a less stiff upper and a more stiff upper, the more stiff upper with the same sole plate is going to feel a lot more responsive. And that's how these feel. These feel a lot more like, you know, I talk a lot about, and I'll probably key the phrase like, it's a very cohesive package, Noah Cavanaugh, right? That's kind of a thing that I say, because I think this upper suits the sole plate. I'm a lot happier with how these feel, even if they are a little narrow for me, as a holistic package, as opposed to the leather model. And that's not, you know, necessarily to say that the leather model was bad, but it felt pretty cheap, whereas these ones feel a lot more thoughted. Wow. You know what I'm gonna say? How thoughted is spelled? Thotted. They're thoughted. Okay, so I think these ones, yeah, even on ball, they just feel a lot more premium. Now, in terms of the grip on the ball, there is absolutely zero, but I'm honestly not fussed with that, because this is like a turf model that you'd wear, you know, I guess you could wear all the time if you played mostly on AG and if you were doing like pickup games and stuff. But I would say for like a training session or a game, the upper on this would be totally fine. I'd probably want something a little more aggressive for traction if I am gonna wear this into like a proper match at some point. But honestly, these feel a lot better than the leather model, and these are like, they kind of feel like an old school Vapor, which is kind of cool. Now we'll see if you can even hear me. I feel like because the sun is like where the wind is coming from, I have to film this direction in order to get kind of the best lighting with the sun, but the wind is coming this way too. So if I turn this way, you can hear the sound quality is a lot better and there's no wind noise. And then if I turn this way, Kelvin's gonna have to do some bloody magic to make the sound actually half reasonable. Anyway, so point being, definitely a nice pair if you like old school Superfly, old school Vapor. I would say these are kind of like maybe Vapor 8 vibe. What would that have been? Superfly, Jesus. Vapor 8 was Superfly. Oh, maybe it was like Superfly 3. Superfly 4? No, that was Vapor 11. Anyway, you get the point. They feel more like a Vapor than a Superfly. The only reason I say Superfly is because Nike, all they want to do is put a fucking collar on the Vapor and call it a Superfly. These feel more like a Vapor with a sock, which is today's Superfly, but it would have been like Vapor 8's Vapor. Hope that makes sense. I'm just talking out of my ass at this point. Literally, these are just gonna roll back at me. If there's one thing that Mother Earth does that I couldn't be bothered, and this goes for like every sport and just existing outdoors in general, it's wind. Every other rain, snow, sleet, hail, sunshine, dry, wet, I don't give a shit. As soon as it's windy, I'm like, oh. It annoys me, because especially when you're playing footy or when you're trying to, especially with cycling, oh man, drives me nuts. Okay. But we're out here anyway, not complaining, because it's a beautiful day and we're gonna hit a top banger. Or right down the middle. Either way, you know, it's kind of one or the other. Sometimes you have them, sometimes you don't.
upper feels actually really good. You guys know that I am typically somebody who likes maybe something a little bit on the upper, right? Like some little grip elements. But in the case of a turf model, and I felt the same with, sorry, I'm gonna turn this way as I'm walking back towards the balls because it's gonna make the sound better. Especially with like indoor footy, arena soccer, which is like the American thing. It's definitely something where I actually don't want any grip because the pitch is indoor. It doesn't usually get cleaned all that much. Like what I mean by that is like watered down. And so it's very, very dry and sticky. So I don't need like anything more sticky on the boots, right? If I just want a seamless playing experience. See, that should have been the first one. I don't know why I didn't. Bang. But yeah, they're feeling pretty tight on the outside. As I said before though, when I first got in them, they're probably more on the narrow to medium width foot. If you're a super wide footed player, I'd probably stay away from something like this. But for the sake of this review, I'm obviously gonna stick in them just for the rest of the drills. But yeah, honestly, I really like this overall package a lot more than I like the leather ones. Like it's not even close. I would take these any day. And it's just because the upper feels really kind of one-to-one with the ball. It's super thin. There's no BS on it. It's like a one piece all the way around. So no complaints. These are pretty nice. All right, getting into a little bit of dribble and shoot again. Ooh, hello. Nice. Yeah, I like the striking surface on these a lot, man. I think these would be probably top maybe 5 or 10 choices for me for like a AG. Ooh, get it out of feet. Nice. Which is impressive for a brand that I'd never heard of. So that's pretty cool. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Yeah, very nice. Quick comment about the sole plate. So this is, you know, touted as like carbon infused or whatever. Very similar to Skechers Razor. I would say Skechers Razor, visually they look very similar. Like it's sort of that like matte charcoal gray color. That's like, ooh, it's carbon. No, it's not. Anyway, so less spring. I don't know what that is. Less spring than the Skechers Razor, but still okay, but really nice padding in the heel. So I'll come up to this other camera quick so you guys can see. So this, the white padding right there, that little bit of foam in the heel is what really makes kind of planting and like if I'm running and I stop and I'm heel toeing to turn around or something, that's very, very comfortable because of how padded that heel area is. So that in combination with the, you know, quote unquote carbon infused sole, I would more say that it's like it's sort of just a visual thing, honestly, at this point. But it does feel good. And the stud pattern feels fantastic on this type of AG pitch. So if you are on an AG pitch like this, you have narrow to maybe average width foot. Nice. All right, getting into free kicks quick. I am feeling pretty tight in these at this point because my feet are pretty wide. So I'm suffering for the YouTubes. But here we go. Let's try to get this little knock into top corner. Yep. Oh, gosh, dang it. Let's do that again. Same technique, same run up, nice and easy, right into the top. Ball's moving a little bit. That's all right. Here we go. Almost there. Okay. Yeah, I think these are a boot that I don't, you know, as a person who plays mostly with FG boots, sometimes AG boots. I gotta be brutally honest with you, as much as I like these, and I think these would be awesome, they don't fit me very well, or perfect, you know, they don't fit me well enough to justify playing in them over like a Morelia Sala or a regular AG model of like a top end boot. Yep. Oh my days. Two bloody crossbars in a row. All right, let's jump into crossbar challenge. Should have just had this be the crossbar challenge, but here we are. And yeah, I don't think I'm ever gonna wear these again after this. And that's not because they're not good, because I actually, as you guys probably can tell from the review, I actually do think these are very, very good. They're very comfortable if I had narrow feet. Heel's good, sole plate's good. The holistic package is pretty impressive. And per usual, gotta get these going. Hopefully I can match my free kicks with some crossbars. But yeah, I do kind of wish I fit in these. I do wish they came in a little bit of a wider package. The sole plate doesn't feel unstable at all. It just, you know, again, it always has to do with the upper and the way that the upper sort of wraps the foot. And because this upper doesn't have any stretch to it, unfortunately, it's just kind of a trade-off. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is the conclusion of the playtest and review of the Definiv like mid-cut synthetic boots. For whatever reason, my brain could not remember what the actual model was called, but you'll know from the title and the thumbnail probably. But these are very tight on my feet. Oh, it's like taking ski boots off. Bloody hell. But I am much more impressed with this pair of boots than I am with the leather boot. I think these are a lot more enjoyable to wear. Again, with the huge asterisk that my wide feet will not fit in these even after break-in. These are like they're pretty bloody narrow. So that's something just to keep in mind. If you have a narrow fitting foot and you really like kind of that old school vapor, super thin feel, and you play on AG surface most of the time, whether you're, you know, a competitive player or you play Sunday league or you train twice a week, you know, state league, whatever, UPSL, NPSL type player. I knew a guy in Nisa who used to wear turf models just because it suited his joints a little bit better as he got older. He was like 32, I think. And yeah, I mean, if you fit in these, I think these are actually a really fun package. I think they're unique. No one else would have them, especially if you live in America or the US. My brain is not, I literally just said a redundant statement. If you live in America or the US. If you live in America or you live in Europe, that's what I meant to say. USA, Europe, it's kind of the same mouth shape. Anyway, these would be good. So I'm impressed with these. Definitely not a fan that much of the leather model. They're fine, but depending on the price point, they're probably not worth it compared to some of the other stuff you could get straight out of Japan or China. By that I mean Morelia Sala, C3 from Asics, or Tactician Turf, or Athleta Ray Trenamento. So all four of those boots are superior to the leather version of these, but I wonder how these would stack up to the turf model of like the new Vapors, right? Like Vapor 16 turf or the synthetic Superfly turf. Anyway, I digress. Point being, I like these a lot more. These are very fun. True to size, fits me well lengthwise. I would not recommend if you're a wide-footed player getting these a half or a full size up, because then you just ruin the toe box area and it just doesn't, it's not good for anybody. Get the right size first and then you can figure out what the width looks like for different pairs of football boots. Like the video if you got value from it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As always, be awesome, take care, see y'all in the next video.